So as someone who has actually provided supportive housing to homeless individuals and families since about 2005, and most recently actually spent the last decade supporting families in transitional housing. I can tell you that what I think about when I think of, the homeless is my community, quite frankly. I'm aware that that issues of homelessness disproportionately impact Black and Brown families and communities. That more than 2/3 of our city's homeless population is in fact families with children, and that only 1% of the families that exit the shelter system with subsidized housing are back within a year. Right, that speaks to the sort of cycle of homelessness. And when I think about that, I think about the intersecting and interacting systems of white supremacy and structural and systemic issues that keep families of color in particular from being able to access economic stability, and the relationship between that and housing, discrimination in housing, and families with subsidies and those kinds of things. So I think I hope I'm answering your question. I'm conscious of time as well, but when I think about that, I think about family. I think about community. I've got folks kind of 1 degree separation on either side in my family that have also been impacted. So that's what I think about.
I think of homelessness, I think of human beings who are very much a part of our city, who are struggling on the streets inside our shelters. And when I think of homelessness, I don't just think of it in terms of the audits I've done or the investigations I've done, but I try to think about the homeless individuals I've met along the way, good people who have not gotten the services they need. And the people who shake me up the most are the kids in homeless shelters, the kids who every day are doing their homework at a little desk with their family watching them, because I've actually been in the shelters, the family shelters. I've talked to the parents and the children. I see a lot of love, I see a lot of hope, but I see a city that has not responded to our homeless families. And there are now 13,000 families and over 22,000 children in the homeless shelter system. 90% of these families are Black and Latino, many are single mothers. And we know that many families in shelter are not there because of eviction. Actually, 41% of them seeking shelter from domestic violence. So I see a lot of things, I feel a lot of things, and it's great to talk with people who've actually had the experiences and want to make change.
So when I think of homelessness, I know that the vast majority of people who are homeless are families, usually mom and kids, but could be other family situations. And this really goes back to the challenge of affordability in New York City. In some ways, the rent is too damn high. And so the reason we need to address this is, I think, twofold. One is we need to make sure we are building. We need to build more housing in general to deal with the supply shortage, more deeply affordable housing. So I have said that we would construct 50,000 new units, less for people who make less than $30,000. And the third piece is for folks who are experiencing homelessness and it's an affordability problem, we need to make sure that the voucher matches the market, because my understanding is maybe in 1965 you could rent an apartment for that, but it's been a while since that has been valuable enough to actually get you a real apartment. And we know that having a real apartment, housing heals. It allows you to pursue education, allows you to pursue a career, it allows your kids to do better. So I know that is critical moving forward.
This isn't something I need to imagine. I grew up in New York in the 70s and 80s, and that was the biggest increase in homelessness at that time that the city had seen since the Depression. And it really struck a nerve with me. I kept asking myself, how can it be in the wealthiest city, in the wealthiest country on earth, we allow people to sleep on our streets, our neighbors? And so I started volunteering in a shelter in college. I went to work for the National Coalition for the Homeless when I finished school. And again, over the last 30 years, I've worked side by side with folks experiencing homelessness. So I don't need to imagine it. What I know is it's mothers and kids like you. It is New Yorkers and neighbors. It's immigrants like my father who came to this city in his early life. And that is why I've worked my whole career to make sure that we create more housing, because the root cause of family homelessness, as you well know, is housing is too expensive for so many New Yorkers to be able to afford it. And so as mayor, I would ensure that we are prioritizing ending family homelessness as one of the most important things I want to accomplish as mayor.
People say that competency is on the ballot this year. I think it's character. And, you know, anyone can regurgitate the stats of homelessness. They can talk about how many people are in shelters and how many children, but what are they doing about it in their personal life, and what have they done about it? You know, I have a 4-family house. When my tenants moved in, I signed a lease with them and stated that as long as you're living in my home, I would never raise your rent. And they have been there for over 15 years and they have never experienced an increase. When I think about homelessness, I think about what happened to me as a child. You know, Kay, I went to school every day. They used to call my siblings and I garbage bag, glad bag children, because we were carrying a garbage bag full of clothing to school every day. Mom thought we were going to be thrown out, and she did not want us to be embarrassed by not having a change of clothing. I knew what the neighbors did for me. They would have a susu, and they would help Mom pay the rent. They would leave us food on the back porch during Thanksgiving and gifts during Christmas and clothing during Easter. And so when I think of homelessness, I think of me. I think of my brothers and my sisters, and I think the life that we live. And so there's a lot for human need. There's just not a lot for human greed. And the sacrifices I've made personally is based on how people sacrifice for me. These are everyday people who used to be the person that played Little League baseball with me, or the little girl that sat next to me in my church pew. They went through some hard times. And I think the only way we can help them out of those hard times is to have a person who has also gone through those hard times.
When I think of a homeless person, I can think of a poster that I saw at a church. And this, for me, has been a walk of faith. It says, how can we worship a homeless man on Sunday and forget about him on Monday? And so when I think about the homeless, I think about who we all are. And, you know, circumstances that each of us have to deal with could leave us in a position of being amongst the least of thee. So when I think about the homeless, I think about those who have not had the opportunity, who in many ways have forgotten, and we shouldn't forget them. My word says, make sure that we take care of the least of thee. And so I think about the richness of the personality. I think about what they contribute and what they can contribute. I think about us extending a hand and making sure that their lives are improved and that they have the opportunities that they deserve to have. So when I think about the homeless, I think about all of us, and all of us, but for grace, would we go? And we have to make sure that we care for others the way we want to be cared for, and maintain that dignity. That is so important. So when I think about the homeless, I think about those, at least the one whom I worship, and think about the things that I have been allowed to do and the opportunities I've been allowed to have during the course of this journey. That's what I think about when I think about the homeless.